A moorland stream, a highland loch, a secret river somewhere, or being alone on the coast with just a fly rod for company. Wilderness can often be what you seek, and it is up to you how you choose to define it. We can be solitary by nature as fly anglers. We'll be talking with my guest today about his definition of wilderness. I'm Pete Tigers. This is the Fly Culture Podcast. I'm pleased to welcome EliasTeriö to this episode, and we have much to talk about. We've touched on wilderness, but Elias, it's wonderful to have you along on the Fly Culture Podcast. How are you doing today?
Hi, Pete. Thanks for having me here, and I'm doing very good today. It's a beautiful Sunday over here in Lapland.
And like we say, wilderness and Lapland go hand in hand. You were showing me some maps. We were talking before we started recording, just to give listeners a sense of how far north you are. It's quite a long way, isn't it?
Well, a lot of people, especially from UK, travel to Lapland to see Santa, and they travel to Rovaniemi, which lies on the Arctic Circle. But myself, I live in a small village, roughly 200 kilometers north from the Arctic Circle, close to the border river between Finland and Sweden.
That's a long, long way. And does that mean then that at this time of year, you're keeping a very, very close eye on the weather?
Well, actually, up here in Lapland, I keep very close eye on the weather on a daily basis, since um, the forecast can't really tell what's coming ahead. So you need to look out from the window, and you need to be prepared for different kind of weathers. And just like this week, we have had minus 30 Celsius degrees in the beginning of the week, and now it's only -1. So the temperature varies a lot, and at the same time, the amount of snow and the snowfalls varies a lot. And this week has been snowing quite much. I think we have had roughly 40 to 5 centimeters of fresh snow this week. So a lot of shoveling, but living in a remote place, we don't really have a gym around, but I have my gym outside there shoveling the snow.
That sounds extraordinary. And I know you said you were shoveling for about 8 hours after the last snowfall. So I guess that's putting you in good shape for the season that comes. What does that mean then from a fishing perspective? Do you stop fishing completely during the winter, or is there ice fishing opportunities?
Exactly. We don't quit fishing all the way. We just have to leave the fly rods inside, stored nicely. You know how you take out the line from the reel after every season, and you placed it nicely, or then you just do it just like myself. You just put it in a storage and leave it there, and take out the drill and those little ice fishing rods, and go after perches and whitefish under the ice. Um, so we fish all year round up here, which is one of the best parts of Lapland, actually. And when, especially with ice fishing, the target fishes and the species like mentioned perch and whitefish, those populations, they're so strong up here that you can actually take some prey for yourself and cook a dinner for your family.
And I've heard, I think it might be John Girac, and apologies if I'm wrong, that he wrote about ice fishing in one of his books one time. And he said, looking down into the water, you sort of cover over your head if you're not in a shack or a shed that some of these people build. And he said it was like looking down into an aquarium. Would that be a apt description?
That is very, very well described, how the ice fishing on its best is operated over here, since we don't really have those huts and covers just like in North America, but we do have big coats and big hoods. And what you do is you take a reindeer skin, place it on the snow next to the hole you have drilled into the ice, which may well, sometimes you need extra shaft for your drill just to get through, because the ice cover may be even over 1 meter thick. And then you lay on the skin. You cover the hole with the hood, and you look through the hole. You see the crystal clear water, and those fishes, most often the fish do to swim by and next to your little lure, or the maggot you use as a bait, and then they come and poke, and then finally you catch something. Somebody is eager enough to grab the lure and take the hook, and you might catch the dinner. So that's the best part with ice fishing. And but you need to remember one thing with ice fishing, and that is the responsibility, which comes to protecting the fish populations, because you don't really have an option to do catch and release fishing, so you can't really go selective with the fish. Just some seconds in a minus degree weather affects the eyes of the fish, and the eyes are gone. The fish will then die when if you put it back. So you gotta be very responsible angler when ice fishing, and know where you go and know the species you're targeting, and the situation of the population.
Nicely put. And does that mean then, from a fishing perspective, that you can see these fish? And the way that I've always thought about how this happens is that with those tiny short rods that you describe, that you're sort of jigging a lure up and down or a maggot. And so it's visual. So you can, in effect, do you see a fish? And if there's, say you want to take some perch and a whitefish eats it and you don't want to take a whitefish or whatever it is, does that mean you won't strike or you'll stop jigging? Or do you make a decision on the species, A, if you want to take it, but also stop from taking one if you think something's come along that you don't want?
Well, you basically make those decisions before you drill the hole. You choose the lake, you choose the water very carefully. You know the locals, and you know you need to know the water, and what's going on with the fish populations in the specific water where you're aiming to go, and of course there is also the conditions. They are also affecting the decision, in terms that sometimes the ice is not thick enough, sometimes there is not enough snow to allowing you to ski on the lake, or use a snowmobile to go on the lake. So those are the first steps. Then, obviously, like you said, you use those little tiny rods, very short rod with a lure on the line, and let's say 10 centimeters below the lure, there is a hook or a little like kind of like a nymph with a maggot on it, and you drop it on the bottom, and then you come up little by little from the bottom, and you vibrate that little maggot there, and sometimes you do a little larger pull to make the lure reflect in the water, and drop and sink again, and that's how you trigger the fish, and then you just go with the strike, because uh, some waters you do see the fish, but quite often uh, there is much more murky waters and darker waters, and you don't see the fish, and you may even, you know, the best way of ice fishing is to do it with company. You have your family or friends with you. You sit around on nice little chairs and benches. You have snacks and nice drinks there, and you enjoy the winter day there, and the fishing is just a side product of the day, and then you don't see the fish, and then you feel a little pull, so you need to be awake all the time, like, and with soft hands again, just to kind of like be ready for a little take, and then try to get the fish hooked well enough to allow you to pull it through the hole. since you don't want to have a massive fish because the hole is still like 6 inches or so. So you gotta be kind of like reasonable. But actually, ice fishing for pikes is fairly popular in southern Finland, especially.
And do those trips then with friends and family, and you're sitting around? Does that mean you have a big fish fry up afterwards when you head back?
Um, well, it depends. At this point, you gotta again look into the mirror and go back into responsible fishing. Like every angler, whether it's fly fishing or ice fishing or trolling or whatever, I think everybody needs to be very responsible with their manners and actions while fishing. So those those trips with family and friends, they quite often end up, like you say, with a little bit of barbecuing with some purchase, but then you that's part of the dish, not the whole dish. So you gotta build it nicely, and obviously up here we have very good natural meat resource as reindeers. No offense to Rudolph, but we do we do eat reindeer up here as well, and moose. So yeah, we do eat fish, moose, and all sort of meat, and as well among the veggies, of course.
Nice. And I like where you're coming from the resource perspective, that you're thinking about that, because in my mind, it's a bountiful one that's not heavily fished for. So taking some fish, I have no issue with whatsoever. But I like that you're sort of saying, I'm very aware of there is a resource here and we don't want to abuse it. So you have my utmost respect from that. Does that mean that winter feels a long time for you, and as a result that spring and summer, when they start to appear, are all the sweeter for you? Or you take the whole year as it comes, and that is just the way life is there?
I do take the year as it comes, but I would be lying if I would say that the winter isn't long. It is really long, since our flowing waters, rivers and streams, they close in September for fishing, just to protect the trout populations, and after that, um, ice fishing season starts pretty much December mainly, or maybe even at the end of November, but fairly late anyway. There is already 2 months of waiting, and then there is this snow shoveling season from December till March, and before in March you start to kind of like feel alive again. I'm talking from my own point of perspective, in terms that I feel alive in March when the sun is up again properly, and the days are feeling a little bit warmer. In the daylight, you might even go on the plastic grease, and that allows you to take out your fly rod for the first time, not to fish, because the rivers and the waters are still covered with ice and snow. But you can. Oh well, I tend to do my first casts on snow, just to get the line straight, and feel the rhythm again, feel the plank a little bit, just to, and the cork handle comes in again. So the winter is long, but it offers you to find different aspects of connecting with the nature, which I feel is the most important part of fly fishing for myself. But uh, and then of course tying, there is a lot of the feather season is going on inside the cabin in the winter months, and preparing for the summer and all those trips ahead, and the fishing on the local waters. So it's a long winter, but there's plenty things to do, and to be ready for the upcoming season.
And you touched on fly tying there. Does that mean that you will set aside a day or some time to tie a bunch of flies for your work as well? Or do you sort of tie them, think, right, I need to fill a spot in the fly box there? Or do you have a pattern to your tying and how you decide how you go about doing it?
Mm, I don't really know if you can call it as a pattern, since the vise is open and ready there most of the time. Right now, I've had to pack it since there has been a little renovation, so I haven't been able to tie for some weeks now. But otherwise, it's ready to go there when you have like this moment of inspiration. You see, especially social media these days gives you a lot of inspiration on different kind of flies. You see different kind of fly patterns and from all over the world through social media, and that gives you an idea. Okay, let's try to make that one. Let's see how that's tied, and then you tie it up, and of course the other thing is to fill in the caps in the box, because it just happens that some of the flies do get tangled in the bushes still and everywhere, and fish is taking them and that sort of things, or you hand them out because you find it happens to everybody. You happen to find the right fly that works and the fish is taking it. Your friends are like, hey, what are you using? Hey, can I have one? And then you end up having, well, you have that one left, and so you need to fill in the boxes a lot as well. And yes, I do also tie flies to hand out for people who I fish with over the summer months, just because they may not have the exact right color of the fly or so on, which works on these waters up here.
And one of the questions that comes up now, and I'm starting to push the campaign for disorderly fly boxes, is your fly box a tidy fly box or is it a messy one as a fishing guide?
Well, um, this is a tough question. I would love to answer you that yeah, they're tidy and in an alphabetical order, but they're not. They're not. They're not even a color order or anything. Like I have this one small box where I have all sort of flies, that which is it's somewhere in the jacket or in the waders all the time, so you know that you at least have one box of flies with you when you go out there. And then I tend to have different types of boxes for also for a little bit for different kind of places where I fish. Some for the smaller rivers up here in Lapland, some for salmon on the border river, nymph boxes, and then I have this one box for socha in Slovenia where I tend to go with my friend Yuka to fish. So I have plenty of boxes and in very bad order.
Excellent. I'm welcome to the club. I
Thank you.
think they start the season tidily, don't they? And then just get completely messed up and a complete mess. I'm guessing it's the same for you.
Absolutely, absolutely, and well, that's I think is with the all the fishing gear for some weird reason.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what I wanted to do was move on, and you've talked about the winter. We're starting to learn a little bit about yourself as well. And I wanted to understand a little about the fishing culture in the area and the age of anglers. Is it across a broad spectrum of age groups? Is it considered cool? And I guess I'm talking about fly fishing now. I'd love to get your thoughts on that, just to get a feel really of fishing in your area.
Um, Fishing culture in Finland is quite different from the culture in UK. I had the privilege to live in London area for a couple of years, 10 years ago, and saw some parts of it, and then of course learned a lot from my guests from UK, like Stephen, John, and Martin and Tarkin as well, about the culture over there, and we have been discussing a lot about the differences in fishing culture. As as in Lapland, we have been very, very remote for decades, and and fishing has had very important role becoming food into the table, into the houses. So a lot of fishing has been, and the fishing culture has been formed in a way that fish is food and fish is always a prey, and you go for the prey and to feed your family. And recreational angling has fairly uh, young roots in Lapland in terms. Back in 50s, 60s, and even 70s, more and more people from southern Finland traveled to Lapland to fish. And they were fly anglers or using spinners, and that sort of brought a new fishing culture with them up to Lapland. And these days, like for salmon, it wasn't fly fishing where it all started. Was fished with salmon dams on the big rivers, like who it was started with from here from the Tona River Valley, and then took up to Tana and among the Sami people as well. But then the recreational salmon fishing actually over here, it generated from the lords visiting Namsen River in Norway and bringing Harling into the picture. And Harling has been the big style for salmon fishing over here, as well as fishing with spinners for everything else. Fly culture has long roots in Lapland as well, but it's been a sport for very few people. These days, it's growing its share of the fishing rapidly, especially those Corona years. More and more people had, like they well, a lot of places were closed, so they had time. They didn't go to work and they had time to fish, so they started to get more and more interested in fly fishing. At the same time, when we have seen and learned changes in our fish populations and in the strengths in them, and the weaknesses of the populations, and the climate change, of course, affecting the situation a lot. And and fly fishing, as a fishing method and as a style of angling and a group of anglers, has reputation in Finland of being responsible angling and responsible anglers, most importantly. And more and more people has started to want to join that front of anglers who are, they understand the effects of their own actions out there, and so on. So uh, we are on a good way with fly fishing in Lapland, and it's something that's developing day by day, but and also within the elder generations. Especially myself, uh, I like to give back something when I get something. So I do fish warding, and I take part on the water owners associations, and the fisheries management planning. And I sit in those tables and in the board with these elder generations, and bring them this little, and trying to feed them this little idea of like new fishing culture. And that new culture is fly fishing and fly culture. So I think we're getting there.
That's wonderful to hear, and hear how passionate you're about it. And you talked about living in London as well, and some people from the UK fishing with you. Is the one of the things I always think is a big difference, and I'd love you to be able to tell me about it, is the fishing public access there? So can you fish anywhere there? Because I would think that's one of the things that feeds into and gets more younger people fishing, that you've got somewhere that you can go that isn't expensive, or it's free, if my guess is right, and people can go and enjoy that, and people like yourself who are promoting fly fishing can get them interested in it as well.
Yeah, that's very good question. Since and there you have the biggest difference between the cultures, I think. In UK, most of the waters are privately owned, and you need to even queue to get the fish. And of course, if it's really hard to get the fish, that's an obstacle for the younger generations and new anglers to start this connection with nature. And over here in Finland, we have mainly public waters. So everybody between 18 and 65 years, they pay a fisheries management fee, and then they buy these work permits per either for area or for a certain river or certain water to fish, and the prices are reasonable. Uh, well, I do tell it right here, right now, that our salmon river between Finland and Sweden, the border river, is probably the cheapest salmon river in the world. Like a day permit for that river is £17,
Oh,
20
wow.
euros.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but it also offers you an option to fish for grayling and trout. The trout is protected there, so you need to put them back. But I think a responsible angler does it as it says in the book, and so no worries with that. But definitely the easy access to angling and to these waters is helping our recreational angling and younger generations to take part on the angling. And I think, well, I'm born at the 80s, getting close to my 40s, and I spent my summers fishing. I fished with hook and worm, spinning rod, um, mainly with spinning rod till at my even up to my adult age, back in southern Finland on the lakes for pike and perch, and enjoyed it. And that's something a lot of people and youngsters like. That's how we kind of like grow into angling in Finland, because of the public access, because of the generations before you. So it goes kind of like father or grandfather and son, kind of like chain, how you get into angling here. And I think it's it's a privilege we have, and probably because we have been called the land of thousand lakes.
Yeah, wonderful. And you'd said about hunting, and be it for moose, reindeer, or fish as well. So, and you've alluded to that you've always had a rod in your hand. But what made you pick up a fly rod? What was the journey that took you to that place of first picking up a fly rod?
Well, uh, like mentioned, I've always been fishing. And then 10 years ago, it's only 10 years ago when I really start counting, but I've been fishing a lot ever since. There was a concussion. There was a concussion, and ice hockey came, and uh, I was forced to. Oh well, the doctor told me to go fishing when went through my hobbies and what I'm doing and on the rehab time, and so I went fishing, but I didn't want to go. I wanted to learn something new, and my friends already were fly fishing, and they offered me a chance to try one, and I got hooked instantly. And I on the first summer, I think I spent, because I was in a rehab from that concussion. I was fishing probably 3 months in a row or so. I spent some times at the fjälls, like camping out there, weeks out the fjälls with friends, and some by myself as well, just to recover from that concussion, and the rhythm, the connection with the nature, because those were the things which got me into fly fishing and hooked me really badly. I had I even realized it just after that I have been growing next to fly rods and flies, which used to belong to my grandfather, who came over to Lapland to fish on those 50s, 60s, 70s, and but my for myself 10 years ago it all changed, and that first summer, all those hours with the fly rod and feeling the line, feeling the blank, finding the right rhythm, and learning how to cast, and at the same time observing the nature, observing the insects and everything. It was just that uh, a new world opened to me, and I got sucked into that rabbit hole big time. And it took less than a year, actually. Then I was a partner in a fly fishing company with Alpha Fishing Products. I became a partner there, and I started go around with my friend Jukka, and to help him to develop the roads and everything. See, because I was kind of like out of the box ideas bringing into the game, and learned a lot. And well, you know, that's how it happens to everybody. In some point, you get hooked, and then it's all gone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love where you're coming from that point of view as well. We're learning more about yourself as well. And so I would love to move on and tell us a little bit more about the fishing, because you've described salmon rivers and you've also described lakes. So it looks as though you've got most bases covered. But how, if I said or asked you, tell me about the fishing in Lapland, what would you say? What's the easiest way for you to describe it?
Easiest way to describe fishing in Lapland, it would be endless opportunities. We have these plenty of these pristine waters where you may find beautiful graylings, which tend to grow up to even 50 centimeters and plus. And then those little streams, you find those big graylings in ridiculously small waters. Actually, you just need to be eager enough to find those new places, those places where those fish might be, and might be left alone, and might be caught as well with a fly. So a lot of waters, because they're just out there in the wilderness. They have plenty of bushes around, and branches here and there. So you need to develop yourself as an angler, and develop the skill of casting, develop the skill of fishing on many places. And especially when searching for those smaller rivers. And then, of course, lakes you mentioned. We have beautiful lakes for perch, pike, and whitefish fishing. So you may take out a belly boat and go after whitefish on a beautiful, pristine wilderness lake, or take the big double hander and go after the Baltic salmon. Well, it's a cousin of the Atlantic salmon, and which runs up and migrates to the Tuonumunu River, the border river. So endless opportunities.
Yeah, you're already whetting my appetite, I have to say. And rivers, lakes, multi species. What's your favourite?
Well, my favorite species must be grayling, because it's a fish that I go out and after on a daily basis on my home river. But the fishes and the species I really enjoy targeting up here are whitefish and Arctic char, because they're so difficult to catch. You need to be in a right place on a right moment with the right fly, and then you need to have enough skill to and soft hands to hook the fish, and finally to land it. And because you need to use very thin tippets and small flies, so hooking the fish is challenging. And and of course landing in, well, you need a little bit of luck as well, not just a skill to land those fish. So I must be, well, I can't actually choose one out of those trees.
And so, does that mean these streams, I'm guessing, are crystal clear? Because I'm guessing they're free from pollution. So, my first question is, can you drink the water? And because that just would be a dream for me to be able to take a mouthful of water from a stream that those fish that I'm targeting from, that's part of the jigsaw, part of my connection with those fish. And does that mean as a result of that that you're sight fishing, or do you fish to the water where you think fish might be?
I would love to say that all the rivers and waters up here would be drinkable. But unfortunately, that's not really the case since my home river Akas, which is right and flows into the Torno River, offers beautiful grayling fishing and opportunity to sight fish graylings. Last summer, I had the privilege to fish with Mr. Hans van Klinken and with his klink hammers, and we managed to find a beautiful grayling for him by sight fishing. We were just walking on the bank and saw that, okay, there is a fairly big fish over there, so let's do a couple casts. So and I placed him that, okay, do it from here and try cast from in that angle. And I think he tried three different flies before returned to the one he started with and caught the fish. So we have sight fishing. The water in River Akas is also drinkable. So that is one of those pristine waters. But we do have some, um, if not polluted, but a lot of waters with darker color in the water because of the forest industry, which has been one of the greatest industries in Lapland with years past. But and of course now there is some threats because of the mining industry. But myself and a lot of other people are fighting against those plans to make mines over here. It's not that I wouldn't, you know, we need that industry, but it's the question how we do them and how where we do them and when we do them. Is it our generation or somebody after us? But this is actually this is a question on these areas of Lapland where we have roads, where we have people living in. But when you go out there into the true wilderness, off the roads, like some 20 kilometers from the roads, you're able to drink from the lakes. The lake water is drinkable, so you can be as thirsty as you just want to be and go for it. And of course, it also affects the fish. The fish populations, they're healthier. They're doing much better in 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 those waters which are protected and are from pollution. So yeah, I think we have good water quality providing us very good fish populations as well.
Let me know if you do have any issues because I would love to get behind what you're doing with the mining. I'm keeping my fingers crossed when I'm asking you this question that they're not mining lithium for electric cars, are they?
No,
Right.
they're mining lithium for the electric cars further down south in Finland and actually quite close to the coast of the Eastern Sea down in southern Finland. There are some factories where they process these metals, and but up here they are mining for gold. They're mining for iron and um, as that sort of minerals, but it's not the minerals. It's not the question: do we need those metals or not? It's like mentioned before. I think especially here in Finland, where we have very, very high state of education, I think we should be much smarter than we have been. And of course, history is written to be learned from. So I think we just need to be smarter in terms when are we establishing new mines and where we are establishing them and how we are establishing them, and do we really need them? That's the main question. And I think, we are the guardians of one of the last resorts of wilderness in the whole European continent. So I think we are going to win the battle, because the value of pristine nature, of fresh waters, they are going to be much, much more important than a new battery in a Tesla.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And just make sure you tag me in anything or share stories, and I'll share those, because we can't let this stuff happen. So, you talked about the grayling, and you talked about Hans van Klinken catching one on a clink hammer. So that leads me to believe that they rise. Does that mean that the rivers that you're fishing get big hatches? Do you have a variety of big hatches throughout the year or the fishing season?
Um, yeah, the insects, the actual the species of insects, it varies throughout the season, and that brings in different hatches at different time of the season, and the fish, they are rising all over, and especially those remote wilderness streams and little rivers which are covered with bushes on the banks. And the funny thing is that quite often up here the rivers are, the bottom is much deeper, closer to the bank, and then there is a little sandbar in the middle of the river where you can actually wade, just find your way to that sandbar, and then you're able to fish from that sandbar towards the banks, and go upstream for the fish which is rising. So um, we have good hatches, but I I'm pretty sure we as humans have already been affecting the number of hatches on these rivers and these waters closer to accommodation and the roads. So um, I think if you're, well, myself, I love dry flies. That's the thing. That's the thing for me in fly fishing, to always go dry fly first, and then if that doesn't work, then you go under the surface. But I really enjoy those moments when I have time and access to go into the real wilderness, and to those more remote rivers and streams where those big hatches happen. You have some hatches going on here as well all the time, but you gotta be in the right place and at the right time, and to really go. We have all seen in Rolf and Linder and those guys doing it in the YouTube, how they find these massive hatches for vulgatas and mayflies, and so yeah, going in the right place at the right time. That's the secret.
Nice. And you mentioned about the real wilderness, or further on still from where you are. Does that mean that you will head out there with a tent and stay a few days and fish?
Yes. Well, the wilderness, I think, compared to UK, I guess I am living in the wilderness, since I have 200 kilometers to the closest hospital, and but funny enough, I do have light fiber internet connection here at my cabin. But the true wilderness, I think it's a little bit further up north, or even here, but in the middle, further inland of Lapland. And I do take my rucksack and pack my wading gear, couple layers or like base layers, and just in Lapland, even it's summer, even it's June or July, those summer months, it might be plus 36 or 38. We have had these ridiculous heat waves, but it can also be close to 0 degrees over the night. So you need to have good layering with you, and then of course you have your cooker in the rucksack and the tent, and you go out there, and we are having everyone's right here in Finland, which means that you can camp for 1 to 2 nights on the public land, not disturbing anybody else, not disturbing the nature, and not leaving a trace into the nature, uh, pretty much everywhere. But so it allows you to set up your camp right next to the river, and well, if there has been somebody has had a fire or and build a spot for the fire, you may do a fire there, but you're not really actually allowed to do it, but especially except in emergency. So need to be always smart with that. And these summers we have had, they have tend to be a bit dry. So with the live fire, you always need to be smart with. But with cooker, the gas stove, it's easy to cook, and those days, those moments, they are the best, since you can, well, unfortunately the real wilderness without any kind of mobile phone connection is disappearing from the northern hemisphere and up here, and from Lapland. There is some spots where you don't have connection, but you always can find a place where you have no connection, when you just put your phone on the flight mode to be able to take photos with it, or just you just turn it off and put it in a rucksack. You don't need it. In the summertime, June, July, you don't even need a watch, because the sun is up there for 24/7, and you have plenty of daylight, and plenty of time for fishing, which you need to be careful also with that, because it kind of like turns into madness where you don't really realize to stop. You don't remember to eat, you don't remember to drink. Well, a little bit of water, it's always good to have your cup with your wooden cup kuksa with you, so you can drink from the water you're fishing, but remembering to eat is actually challenging. And I've had a really really good memory of spending a nightless night enjoying the midnight sun fishing with beautiful angler and friend Mr. Finley Owen from Scotland. And he was joining me. We were doing a little promotional video thing for Lapland, fishing Lapland some years ago. And I remember this kid coming from Scotland. Okay, he's keen angler. He's fishing. He's fishing a lot. He's not really leaving leaving his rod alone at all, or spending any time indoors or anything. And we had this opportunity to spend one day out at the fjälls fishing there, and with the midnight sun up there lighting us up, giving all the time we needed for the fishing. We had this beautiful reindeer roast with us that we were supposed to cook. Well, we had it with us, but Finley was so eager to fish. He was sitting in a belly boat for hours and hours, and finally, we had some, guys with cameras with us, and they were like, should we eat something? And we made a little fire, had some sausages, and then somebody realized to ask, like, I had my first bite to eat for probably the whole day with that sausage, so I wasn't even awake what was going on. And somebody asked, like, has Finley eaten anything? And I was like, no, he has not. So we took a drone, we took a little piece of fishing line, and we flew a sausage over to that remote wilderness fjell lake for Finley to catch from the air. He catch this sausage from the air, ate the sausage, and yelled after, "Thank you!" So I don't know, being out there in the wilderness with the daylight, with all the light you can just imagine. I don't know. It's something very phenomenal that every angler should experience in their lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely. And the world seems to be getting smaller and smaller as well. So while these opportunities are about, yeah. What it seems as though it was it an easy decision for you to become a fishing guide?
Well, I think it actually happened by accident, in terms that after that serious concussion, I had to change my profession a little bit and study to become a physiotherapist. This I've always been very keen on the human body and how our body and mind connects and how it works and what can we do to make it work better and so on. And when I finally finished those studies and started working as one, um, I got I couldn't leave an opportunity to try, and I was selected as a project manager for the fishing tourism development on the Border River, and that kind of brought me into the game in as a of the guides. I was I was or I had been working less than a year when I was um, called and asked to host and guide one of the media groups. We actually did a live fishing show for Fishing TV back in 2018 on the midsummers, and it was a TV group called Arctic Waters from Finland. Um, they are producing this fishing TV show over here, and I was hosting them and being a local guide for them, and then more media connections came, and I started my guiding career from media groups, taking them to fish in places where I think fishing is very good and where all the services needed were available. So through that, I became a fishing guide. More and more people ask, like, "Hey, can you take me fishing? Hey, you know this, fly fishing thing, don't you? Like, could you teach me a little bit of fly fishing?" And that kind of like those were the first steps. And then over here, where I live, this is a tourism destination, so there was also demand for guiding and fly fishing programs and activities. So me and my friend, we established a company and to offer different kind of outdoor activities, from fishing to kayaking and mountain biking and long range snowmobile tours and that sort of things. And of course, well, not of course, but I actually, ended up with that TV group as well. So I've been participating in that TV show for past 5 years, and and became friends with one of my best friends, Tony, and whom has a lodge by the Muonio River, by the Salmon River, called Visanto Lodge, and I've been guiding there for 4 seasons now, and meeting these beautiful people. From UK, from Netherlands, from Finland, and I think the furthest one, I think we had one guy from Philippines who was fishing with us and wanted to give it a go for salmon fishing. So those were the first tips and steps of guiding career, and I think it has offered a lot. It's not easy way of living. It doesn't bring you, you know massive amount of money. It doesn't really actually pay the bills, but it offers you very, very good amount of meeting good people and getting network with beautiful persons and people who share the same passion of fishing and angling as yourself. So I think that's the much more valuable than the euros that's been transferred to my account. There should be more, but at least to my fiance. But well, the negotiations they are still going on. So
And when I can imagine you allow yourself a little smile when people see the river or the fish for the first time, and you think, "Yep, they get it too now."
I do because usually when I pick up people from the airport or from the train station, um, because those are the easiest ways to come over here. But you can actually drive from UK to up here if you want, but or from Europe. And the first wows, it's not maybe not even a smile, but it's in the car on the way when all the roads they're sided by endless forests. You see those rising fells in the horizon, or closer, even closer to the roads. You see a reindeer, just eating hay on the side of the road, and then stupidly looking at you. And so people are quite often they get amazed already in the car, and you kind of like start feeling it. Okay, this is starting good. This is starting good, and then you get to the river, you get to the water, and they go like, "What? Where are we? Where is this real?" And you go like, "Yes, this is real." Then okay, let's go grab something to eat, and then we hit the waters. So it's always it's always it warms my heart a lot to see the faces.
That's wonderful. You can see, and I'm sure listeners can tell as well, how proud you are of the fishing of your area and everything that goes along with that as well. And it's just coming across to me. It sounds an extraordinary destination. Tell me something. One of the questions that we have on the podcast, the most dreaded one, I'm hoping that you probably don't need to listen to music while you're fishing, because there are lots of other noises that, and I guess silence as well is one of them, or the sound of water. But for our fly culture playlist, would you have a song that you would give to us that we can add to our playlist? Do you have something that you love to listen to that sets the tone for that drive to the river or the lake for you?
Music is something that, like you said, you mentioned in the nature it's there, but in the car on the way, because of course our drives are a bit far, so I listen music, all kind of music, but a song that's been traveling with me all over Australia and UK and Canada. And I remember how I was just I was longboarding in Richmond Park and listening to it, and I still do that. But I drive my car to the river and enjoy it. It just gets me on a good mood, cause and to kind of like feel the right, feel privileged, feel loved. And it's Bob Marley's "Could You Be Loved." That's my favorite song. So I do listen to that while heading to the rivers and the lakes, and it just puts me on a good mood. It fits with the sunlight very well.
That's a very fine choice, and the album Legend is something I listen to a fair bit as well. So wonderful choice there. It has been, we're coming up an hour now, Elias, and I feel like I haven't done the fishing justice, because I think we could probably carry on talking for quite some time. How can people, and I encourage them to look at your social media, how can people connect with you? How can they find you? What are your social media handles? What are website addresses? Can you give those to us, please?
Well, actually, social media is I think it's the easiest from Instagram. Terrio E is my nickname there, and or EliasTeriö. You'll find it from Instagram by that, and sending me a message. I'll then send you over my phone number and my email address. That's the easiest way. But another option is always to go to fishinglapland.com and to find Visanto over there, the lodge I'm operating with my friend with, and well, for anybody, because we have so much of fishing available, and most importantly, with reasonable pricing, which I encourage, like everybody who's new to the sport, because you need those hours to get better and better. You need to be casting, you need to be fishing. That's the only way to actually learn to read the river and that sort of things. To look into the page and let me know, and I'll give you the hints how to get yourself over here, and where to go fish, and when you want to catch this and this species. So I think fishinglapland.com and Instagram, those would be the channels to get in touch.
Fantastic. And Elias's surname is spelled Terio. And so you can find him there. And this is a beautiful story. This, I want to promote what Elias is doing, but this came about. It was beautiful that he sent me a message on Instagram and just said, thank you for the podcast. While I'm spending 8 hours a day shoveling snow, I'm listening to the podcast. And we just got talking from there. And I said, hey, why don't you come on and tell us about what you're doing? So I'm absolutely thrilled to have had you on the podcast. I'm thrilled to have spoken to you. Your passion, I absolutely love. And I will shout about what you're doing as well, because it needs to be shouted about. People like yourself in fly fishing. And, there is wilderness out there that isn't so difficult to get to. So please be sure, listeners, to have a look at what Elias is up to. And I think you'll enjoy it. Elias, it's been wonderful to chat with you. I know we chatted for some time before we started recording, and I'm sure we're going to continue to afterwards. But for the time being, I would like to thank you for being a guest on the Fly Culture podcast today.
Thank you, Pete, and tight lines for everybody listening to this beautiful podcast.
Thanks so much, everyone. This has been another episode of the Fly Culture podcast. Thank you so much for listening. As ever, there'll never be any charge for these. I just love doing these sorts of things and helping our community in any way that I possibly can. But thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Fly Culture podcast. There'll be some more coming very, very soon.
The Fly Culture podcast is brought to you in association with Fly Culture, a quarterly published magazine owned and run by fly anglers. When it comes to fly fishing, we've got you covered.